Hey guys, this is the Leadership to Wealth podcast. So glad you can join us today. Our guest today is a real life ninja. He has he's learned and taught many martial arts. He's a specialist when it comes to survival training, personal security. I mean, you know it. And now he's even gone into a scary, scary place. He's written a book, and you get to check that out. He's going to talk about his book as well. But guys, on our show today, we have our special guest, Alan Baker. Welcome to the Leadership to Wealth podcast. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Today on the show, we've got Alan Baker. And Alan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
So, Alan, we are. We're gonna talk. I don't know what areas we're gonna get into, but I look forward to what you share with us today. But for the viewers, could you just share tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, give us a little bit of background, where you come from, just as we get started.
Well, originally from Tennessee. Moved into Georgia in mid-90s. I'm mostly known as a martial artist. I've been doing martial arts over 40 years. I've trained in multiple martial arts in that amount of time, actively. I haven't taken a lot of breaks unless something forced me to. But additionally, I'm a dive instructor. Full cave certified, so I teach a lot of that. Additionally, I'm a Repel master instructor, so I travel and I teach and certify and bring people up in different levels of rappelling. Personal protection specialist, so I get an opportunity on occasion to work with some really interesting clients on the protection side of the world. And I have a business additionally where I design, build, and operate associations for high-level martial artists, which is fantastic. I get an opportunity to kind of get under the wing of those guys and do what I love and learn more and grow more. So in a nutshell, that's me.
That is amazing, and we could go down any one of those. I hope we get to touch on on all of those. But let me start with born and raised in Tennessee.
Yes, sir.
But then you moved to Georgia. How old were you before you moved out of Tennessee?
Let's see. 20s, early to mid 20s. I think I moved down there. I was.
Are you a football fan?
Oh yeah, I track it. Probably not as much as the martial arts world, but
right,
keep up with it. Interesting side note: I really haven't owned a TV since the '90s. So if I do watch it, I go somewhere to watch it, or I'm hanging out with a buddy.
Okay, well, I can't see. You never know what's going to come out of a question. You haven't owned a TV since the '90s.
Yeah,
that's got to be by design.
Yeah, I'm not much for sitting still. 30, 40 years ago, they call it ADHD. To me, it's a superpower. If it is properly focused, and unmedicated, you just have to get it in the right direction. But the idea of sitting on a couch and watching something for an hour, there's no way I'm going to do that. So I've always been, one that focuses on growth. So it's like, what am I going to do with my day? What am I going to do with my week, my month, my year? How's it going to look? So I don't create many opportunities to sit on the couch. Actually, my couch probably doesn't get much use or mileage at all.
Okay, so hang on a second. I get that. Actually, have you had the diagnosis of ADHD? Did you ever get a diagnosis for it?
Yes, and that's actually one of the things that originally got me into martial arts is, the school at that time sent a note home or called mom and said, look, you need to drug this guy. We can't control him. And that's how they did it at that time. And she refused. She said, it's your job, deal with it. But as a part of her effort to help me focus or maybe burn off some of the energy, she introduced me to one of the local martial artists in the town. And I fell in love with it. I went in. I remember to this day. The guy's name is Brent Helms. He had 2 sons that were there, and they just beat me to death. Back then it was a lot easier to get away with.
Right.
And I fell in love with it, and I've been involved with it ever since.
Yeah. Back then it would have been almost considered necessary for training to to do it. I remember when UFC came in and you got to hear about all the different gyms, and the vast majority of the gyms that was all just part of the training. Was you'd go in and guys would beat up one another, and you got better. But so let me ask, because it's interesting that you said that your mom was like, yeah, we're not giving him any medication, because one of my sons was also diagnosed with it. And we said, forget that nonsense. We're not medicating him either. And so when you, as a kid, now got into it, and how old were you at the time when you got into martial arts?
11, just before 11th birthday. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're there, and you get exposed to that and fell in love with it. What type of martial arts was it that you were doing?
Originally, it was Ishinru, but within no time, I was like begging to be enrolled in as many of the local schools as I could get my foot in. Loved it.
Okay. Can you say what it was that you loved about it?
I was a rowdy kid. And, you go to class and you could do things that got you in trouble outside of class. So that's one of the things I enjoyed. But they focused heavily on discipline, focus, the ability to control yourself. And Coach Helms was amazing at it at that time. He would take you, sit you down, and talk to you about it. And I was just fortunate that after I continue to grow with other instructors, I met other people who took the time to get personally involved with me, and they did all the students. But I'm very fortunate. Yeah.
There's, I think there's something to be said about giving kids the opportunity to release some of the aggression, some of the whatever you want to call it. I've got 2 boys, and they'll fight every so often, and I've told them, I'm like, you're allowed to. If you guys want, go downstairs. We got mats down there.
Nice.
I've done some BJJ, and so I've got mats downstairs. And I'm like, guys, just take it down there so you don't break anything. You're good, And wait, you want us to fight? Absolutely. You guys are kids. Now they're teens, so you're trying to get them to be a little bit more careful. But we got gloves. Put on the gloves. Whatever. You guys go at it. Easy with the headshots, and then come back when you're ready. And it's amazing that usually turns for them into very quickly. They're now playing. They're back to being kids and playing, doing whatever, and whatever they were upset about, whatever they were picking on one another about, which is more about testosterone in teenage boys, but they've moved on. So can you say something about what, that whole aspect of kids being able to kind of release some of that aggression in a controlled environment?
It's you've seen it firsthand. Obviously, it's very important. Some personalities will have more of it that they have to deal with than others, and like we get a lot of those at the academy in the kids class. So, they're expressing in another way. So they get an opportunity to come in and romper room pretty much. The academy is a padded room. So you can bounce off the walls, you can bounce off the instructors. If the other kids are game, you can bounce off of them and get an opportunity to rough it up a little bit. And, the great thing about it is that will lead to opportunities to learn life lessons. Things happen. But, a good trained instructor will recognize the moment and take the time to sit down and go, hey, that's probably an outcome of what you chose to do. Maybe next time this is a better way to do it, and learn and grow from it.
Yeah. Do you think, in your experience, that having that place to be able to channel that energy gave you a greater ability to then channel your energy outside of the dojo, outside of the club?
Most definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is a lot of those elements, lessons, the little nuggets of wisdom in most of the schools I was involved with wasn't really on the curriculum. There's generally a list of things you're going to learn, and that stuff isn't written on there. And the way you get access to it is generally by you make a mistake. That's one thing about the martial arts floor is there's a lot of opportunities that are presented on a regular basis to learn a life lesson. And it's a great place to learn it because out in the real world, consequences can be a little more, devastating. So those moments would come up with different instructors, and they would take the time, they'd take you to the side and go, hey, have you ever considered this? You seem to get angry real easy, and you need to get control of that. And here is a way that you can gain control of that and better yourself so that it doesn't control you. For instance, now go back out and try again. So for me, that definitely related to life. By a multitude. I would not be where I'm at today if it wasn't for those moments and having mentors and teachers that would pass along information like that.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know why I never connected the dots, but I think you just connected some dots for me. It is clearly an opportunity. It's what you said. It's an opportunity to be able to, first of all, do things that you wouldn't be able to do outside of that arena. Have the successes and failures in a controlled environment so that you're not dealing with it out there and where the likely outcomes are catastrophic for somebody. And so
it's just
fail over and over and over and over and over again.
And the most important thing is, and this is a common conversation, to realize that is part of the process. The journey includes failure in order to obtain great success. And there's no other way around it. And a lot of times we'll fail and go, and that stops us in our tracks. But like the kids, if they learn that early and go, well, this is just part of it, let's do it again. Oh, it's just part of it. Let's do it again, do it again, do it again. All of them will make it. And when they do, they'll achieve what they achieve at a higher level than they expected. And that's the time to sit down with them and go, hey, look what happened. I mean, it's really cool that you achieved this thing, but the process that you took to get there, that is the important thing. You can go at school and you can use that same process. We know it's going to happen. Don't let it damper your spirit. Don't let it damper your emotions because, those things are going to be involved. Don't let those things control you. It's coming. And then I always tell the guys, that's the first step. But as warriors, once we realize that those things are going to come, you're going to have failure, we seek them out. Where the average person kind of waits on them. I'll do my best, and if it comes, I'll handle it. But I think the warrior spirit is like, I know failure is coming. I'm going to go after it. I'm going to go seek it out and obtain it at a higher level and get it over with, because wisdom comes from it as well. The more you mess up, the more wisdom you have. You learn how many different ways, whatever that is, that we know this doesn't work because I tried all of that. And, guys that fail and they've gone through catastrophic failure, they have wisdom. They can speak from it and they can make decisions from it in the future. So it's another thing, another level I like to tell the guys is now that you're aware of that, create a life skill. Not only to just not be afraid of it, but go get it, go seek it out, go find it. And it'll help you process the journey quicker and achieve more sooner.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. If you're watching right now, I hope you realize how sexy that was. That he just shared. Because, man, the opportunity to be able to enjoy failure is so rare. That you have to hear it from the Michael Jordans of the world to really even understand that it's there. But typically one of the issues I have with how we've set up our school systems are that it's not encouraged. And so you don't want to risk much. You almost don't want to go out there and ask certain questions. Whereas what you're talking about is the opportunity for growth. Look for that opportunity to, because in that is the lesson. In that is the treasure, if you will, right? What you just shared with me, something some people have asked me some questions recently, and I was realizing that when I look back on my life and all of the catastrophic situations, I look at those and I smile. I smile now because I realize the wisdom and the superpowers that I've gotten out of that. And it literally hurts when you see people that are afraid to go into those areas. I'm sure you must have this as an instructor. You must, as a teacher, you must have it come up where you have students that you're able to direct and help them into that, and then you must have students that are kind of afraid to make mistakes. And what's that like? What's that like? And can you give us anything on how you do that? How you would coach those kind of kids in those different situations?
Well, it varies per individual. Some individuals, they're going to have something in their mind. They're going to have a mind state or a vision. I don't want to look like this. And so then we're going to have a talk about what does it really mean to take someone else's opinion of what you're doing into consideration. That's not that some opinions don't matter. They do, but we get to choose those opinions. I'm not just going to take them from anybody. Like if I'm on the street and I think in my mind, this guy's going to see me trip and fall. Who is that guy? And why do I care? But if it is a family member or somebody of the inner circle, somebody that's close to you, then I may, listen to that opinion. But I've chosen to place that personality, that person in that position. And most of the time I chose them because they're not going to give me a hard time. Or if they do, they're going to say, hey, maybe you should think about how to deal with this. Another common one is discomfort. And, growth from failure involves a good dose of discomfort. And so, which is another life skill, just learning to live with discomfort. Because I want to avoid it. And if I fail, there's going to be discomfort, and so having that discussion that discomfort is part of life, especially a life that is going to be designed around growth and expansion. So, you can go home and sit on the couch and be protected or get out there and do it. And in advance, failure's coming. It's going to involve discomfort. but you can handle it. It's like on the mat, you're placed in many situations of discomfort, different levels of it. If it's too much, that's okay. You can let us know, and we can back it off a little bit and let you get used to what you're used to at that time. And then a little farther along in your journey, we'll add a little more. And you'll see that you can handle and do more than you'll ever think you can do. My entire career teaching, I've yet to run into one person who, that's all I can do is this mark, that did not go past that mark with consistent effort and time.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And oh my goodness, there's so many different things that you're making me realize. Okay, this is going to sound funny, but what you just had me thinking about was, as I've gotten older, how much I've learned to enjoy some of those failures and mistakes, because now, as I'm older and I don't care as much about what people think, it's like, oh, I'm going to learn something new. Okay, I messed this up. All right, but I'm going to learn something. What's that lesson? And it's almost addictive. And you just reminded me that one of the of a situation when I was doing some BJJ, and where I live, we had one school, and my coach ended up moving away. But I remember when I first came and we were doing some training, and this guy, I don't know, he's maybe about 20, and a kid 20 years old, and he's about a foot shorter than me. And we're starting in a very basic position, and he'd go. And in the amount of time that it took to say go, he would have me flipped over onto my back. Yeah. Like, I don't know, what's that, half a second? Okay, hang on a second. Let's go again. Okay, we do it again. Go. Boom, back on my back. Mm-hmm. Boom, back. I'm like, this shouldn't be happening. What's going on? But I remember how, and as you're sharing, I remember how exciting that was, because I was like, this doesn't make sense. I should be able to do something here. And then learning a little bit of technique, and the power that comes out of, okay, now put the hand out. Okay, boom. And it stopped me from getting rolled over each time. And that gets addicting. And so what you're just sharing, I'm thinking, yeah, absolutely. Every kid has to love that when they go through that process, because, they probably don't have some of the baggage that we have when we get to be adults. And now we're worried about how we look and all of that kind of stuff. And kids probably almost have a little bit more purity at that age to be able to just enjoy the process.
Yeah, they go to class, they have experiences, and may not even realize what's happening until a year or two later, and you have that talk with them. Yeah. And it's like getting, the coach says go, and you get swept. Now, you might get a little better, and next time he says go, you don't. But your entire career, I mean, I've been doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for 27, 28 years now. I still get swept, and I still end up on the bottom. And, you do the best with where you are, where you're planted. You go from there. And sometimes, you get that 20-year-old. It's got 100 pounds on you.
No, it was the other way around. I had 100 pounds on him. That was the crazy thing.
Sometimes you still end up in that position, but
absolutely.
You gain control of yourself, breathe, make adjustments, and then go from there. And then, which is a change in mindset too. But you stay with it. And after a amount of time, through wisdom, knowledge, growth, you flip that guy over and he's stuck on the bottom. He might not even know what happened. And then finish the roll or the fight from there. Yeah.
One of my friends who's I think he's third degree That's three Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Sorry, Roy, my bad. But I remember he actually helped me with a mindset shift. And because I realized growing up, I always had this very aggressive nature. And so even when I started at an older age learning some jiu-jitsu, I was very aggressive in what I was doing. And he was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "You used to wrestle, didn't you?" And I was like, "Well, that was my brother's wrestling dummy." But anyways, he was like, "Okay." And he could literally tell me about my character based on what I did on the mat.
Oh yeah.
And it was amazing. I was like, that's amazing that you got all of that out of our time rolling on the mat. But one of the things that he opened my mind to was, he said, rather than always going for the win, you have the opportunity to learn, to just have fun, to explore. And your goal doesn't have to be to win. And I was like, it doesn't? He's like, "No, you're doing this for life. You can have as much fun as you want and just explore and learn. Put yourself in the worst position possible and learn how to get out of it." And I was like, I don't have to win? Oh my goodness. I know this sounds really dumb, but it blew my mind, because that opened up things in my life as well.
Yeah.
That my goal doesn't have to be to win. And actually those 20-year-olds, now when they start coming at me, if my goal isn't to win, I actually got to fight like an old man and stall them out until they get tired. Because, young guys, they just give you all of it right away, and then they get tired, and then you flip them in. But and that's coming from a guy that doesn't know much. But it was amazing to me, the lessons that you can learn in life, and how I've changed as a man in business, even outside of the mats.
Agreed.
Yeah. So man, we talked a lot about that, but I wanted to talk a little bit about, so you got Repelling in there too. That's really interesting to me, because now you're talking about I've done some Repelling, and I have cried and screamed while doing that. Some days I go out there, I've got a fear of heights. Some days I go out there and there's no problems. Then other days I've been out there and I'm like, that wall looks like glass. And, the wind looks like it's, got knives flying through it. And I'm like, this is all in my brain. And it's the funniest thing to have the instructor or my friend down on the bottom going, "Okay, I want you to do this." Or he said, "Just come down." I'm like, "Just tell me what to do," because I don't know, because I was freaking out. And so everything you're sharing, I'm seeing so much mindset in there. So tell me something about Repelling and how you got into that.
Well, I had a Kung Fu instructor when I was in my teens.
Yeah.
And he owned a Kung Fu school, and it was in Tennessee.
Okay.
It was an old warehouse. And so he would teach martial arts through the week, but over the weekends, he had a expeditions company. And so he would run trips, scuba dive, climb, rappel, mountaineering. He'd teach survival. He was ex-military. So he was about 4 hours from where I lived. So a buddy of mine would drive up during the week and we'd train. And then he'd say, "Hey guys, why don't you stay this weekend? You can help me. I've got a group of people and we're going to be doing these things. And if you don't mind, you can stay and help out." So we definitely, at that age, so we ended up hanging off of the side of mountains, underwater, getting lost in the mountains of Tennessee, all kinds of experiences that I thought was normal at that time. But he's the one that planted that seed. And so, I have always pursued it. the climbing, rappelling. And rappelling is just
Yeah.
the avenue I pursued certification in because,
Right.
The opportunity to teach and help people. And like you
Yeah.
said, going over the edge, even on just like a little 50-foot rappel, can be a life-changing experience for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Not to mention higher level guys that are coming out, for instance, like to do a Repel Master certification. And those guys won't sleep for 3 or 4 days. And that's a fun one.
Wow. I mean, rappelling was fun. I've obviously, what I've done is top roping, right? So, and it was always fun to me because I had this fear of heights. And so, man, the adrenaline rush that comes off of that, some days you're fine. And then other days I would freak out and I'd literally have to say, tell me where to put my hand because my brain is working. I may know, but the fear response is taken over. And now it's my buddies, so they would laugh at me and we'd have a good time with it. But I didn't want to not do something because I was scared, right? So I found it a real mind trip, real mind game, and really appreciated that. So that's really interesting. But now you've taken that, and now you also do survival training as well. You said, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you do. You said you do another type of training for personal security. Or for what type of training do you do there? Personal security, maybe police officers. I don't know.
About 14 years ago, I designed a program for the Executive Protection Institute here in the United States.
Okay.
And they're the oldest bodyguard training school or protection specialist training school in the U.S. Yeah. And I usually go up about every 6 months to teach the class, which led to many opportunities to go through the school and then start doing some of the work. When I go into an agency, I like to take a look at their environment, learn it, and then create the program around their environment. My goal is not to just go in and teach this martial art because it's the best, because that never works. So once I went through the process, got to know the leadership of VPI. They started giving me some opportunities to do the work, which was incredible. You'll be on different details and have the opportunities to deal with a fan base that there's a line of them that want to put their hands on your client. And, you can't knuckle up, but you have to handle, right? That stuff doesn't work. You go to jail. So you have to negotiate a physical exchange that, is socially acceptable and visually appropriate. And both people are happy with the outcome. And, in a 1 day's work, depending on where you're doing the job, you will put your hands on thousands of people. And to me, and that's my work. I love that. I learned so much from that. And so that's been a huge experience for me. I don't get to do it too often. I'm fortunate enough that I get to pick clients. Jobs will come up and they'll say, "Hey, you free? Can you do this?" And I don't know, but then some of them, sounded really cool and turned out to be really cool. So
that's awesome. I won't get into the story, but I will say that sometimes when I watch the UFC, when people are doing their walkout, I'm the weird guy. I'm usually watching the security. It's always interesting to me to watch what they're doing, what they're paying attention to for a whole host of other reasons. But it is interesting that if you're doing it properly, you're never noticed.
Right.
But the only time people ever notice you is if you're doing something wrong.
That's true.
Is that one of the first lessons that you have to teach some of the trainees?
There's different areas in the industry, but in almost all of them, you do not want to be intrusive on the client.
Yeah.
There's some in the industry that are a little more recognizable in the public. They actually want you seen. Because it's a status symbol to them. It's not that common. Most of them, you're out of the way, So, and if you do your job well, most people don't even know you're there unless you need it.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, obviously, we've for those of us that are old enough, we've seen the Bodyguard back in the day, and probably laughed about all of that sort of stuff. But and nowadays we've seen John Wick, and we, of course, we're although I love watching him actually training. We know the movie is a little bit excessive, and we know that you're probably training guys, and they're somewhere in between there, and between John Wick and Kevin Costner. So, so is there an area that you enjoy more than others? Or do you like the variety of being able to do all of these different things and teach in all these different areas?
I like the variety. I'm the type of person that likes to stay busy. So like I'll have the next year.
You don't have a TV, so.
I'm not here often, which is home.
Okay.
But I like it that way. I like to travel, like to stay busy. I like the opportunities of growth and to learn, so it's like the rappelling, the diving, all that stuff. For me, one of my goals is to place myself in a situation where I'm challenged in different areas on a regular basis. So, it may be on the academy floor. It may be on rope in the canyon. It may be diving. Maybe it is a wreck penetration dive, a cave dive, and it's a challenge. Because those type of things sometimes, depending, can get into your head. So, it's just as beneficial to me as the people that I train and teach. They don't see that often, but it's a two-way street. You learn from your teachers, your peers, and your students, and that never really ends.
What is sort of the hardest thing that you're dealing with these days, right? Like you were talking about, you're trying to work out different things, and you're continually trying to grow. What would you say is an area of your life that you're wanting the most growth in, and maybe it's eluding you or something like that?
Oh, wow. That want to make me think. I guess what I'd consider the biggest personal challenge in the last couple of years was writing a book and publishing a book, because I could be considered a knucklehead real easy. I'm not the type of personality that would write a book. And the pandemic, when that hit, the school took a break for 2 or 3 months, and I took the time to go up in the mountains of Virginia and just chill. Emails stopped, text stopped, calls stopped. And during that times when I said, I'm going to do this thing that I don't think I can do. Unfortunately, I had a couple of mentors that gave me some guidance and did it. So for me, that was an achievement, but even bigger than that is like publishing it and knowing people are going to be reading it. But, so it's like, what, I'm going to do it. It's the same thing we talked about earlier, and it's been great. I mean, I've been amazed by the amount of people that have got in touch with me from really different parts of the world to ask questions. And, hey, I really like that. What's the next step? What do you think a person should do here? What should I do there? It's been really fantastic. And it was way outside of what I normally do, punch people for a living, hang on ropes and dive and that type of thing. So this was a world that I knew about, but I was never had the opportunity to be involved with or introduced to. So that was the latest challenge.
Yeah. Why write a book?
Well, we spoke earlier about the opportunities of instructors really on the edge of the mat or in between class, sharing those little tidbits of knowledge and those little talks that make huge change. And, they may have nothing to do with the curriculum or the technique you're working on or the guy that you're getting ready to spar with. They've got to do with changing, on an emotional level, on a mental level. But it's not on the curriculum. And I learned it as I came up. And then when I got to the point where I started training people and coaching people, I passed it on. I'm an avid note taker. So I've literally got thousands of handwritten notes. And so I started at one point to put those lessons into a little outline because I was teaching it to different people. And they would always make the same comment. Why not? Why isn't this on the curriculum? Where's this written down? If this is so influential, what's the next one? So same comment I would get, you should write a book on this, make a curriculum on it. So that was what planted the seed. And so when I had the opportunity to take the break, took all of those notes and started putting it together. The challenge is explaining it, to someone that maybe isn't in the martial arts world. The terminology has to be a little different, and sometimes you have to go into a little more depth of the explanation. But that's what motivated putting it together.
Yeah. So what I'm really hearing is it's much more about what you get to pass on by writing that book, as opposed to, even what you get from that. Would that be accurate? Do you feel like it's more important that you're able to pass that on?
Yeah. It's like I said, the people close to me at the academy, I get so much feedback, this motivated me to do this or to make this change. I'm trying to do this with my life. Thank you for putting that out. And then I think I got an email from a guy out of Australia this week, huge email. And he's going into, he read the book and then made a change and then decided he's going to change all these areas. And so he explained it all. But that's pretty awesome. Knowing that I have an opportunity to influence and help someone make a change, make some sort of growth that's, on the other side of the planet. It's not just at my academy on my mat. That's pretty powerful for me.
So who's the book? What's the name of the book? First of all, I guess we should ask that first.
The Warrior's Path to Personal Change.
The Warrior's Path to Personal Change. And who's it really targeted for? Like who would get the most benefit out of it?
Well, the way it was written, anybody can. It is a self-growth book, but it's from a warrior's perspective. You have different groups out there, and they have different personal development and growth methodologies, and that's my approach. That's how I grew up. So, a lot of the principles could be applied anywhere, business, everyday life. Although I learned the majority of them on the mat. And, so I'll introduce those different principles, talk about how I got introduced to it on the mat, and then how I took it and maybe used it in life to, go places outside of the academy that I never expected to do.
Yeah. So basically, if you see yourself as a warrior, or want to see yourself as a warrior, there are life lessons that can be taken from there, business lessons, all of these types of things from a warrior's mindset. And that about right?
That's about right.
Okay, that's awesome. How long did it take you to write it?
The bulk of it I got done.
Probably you wrote all those notes over the years, right? And then
if you include the notes, got it down on the edge of the mat. I mean, 40 years.
Woo! Yep.
I guess I just put it in order and put it all in one place. That took about 2 months.
Yeah. Well, that's very much the nature of martial arts, is it not? I mean, lessons built upon lessons, and then being able to teach that out to people.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so all right, I got it. You're Chuck Norris and Bruce Lee put together. Add in maybe a little bit of BJ Penn or on the other side, and meanwhile looking like George St. Pierre with hair. Okay, so now, well, what about when you're away from that? Like, there's got to be a kryptonite to the Superman. I mean, there's like, you're afraid of spiders? Where do we go?
Oh, wow. That you could talk about the injuries from living that type of life.
Oh, okay.
That's kryptonite. A lot of those lessons were paid for in physical ways. And I'm still paying in some of those ways too. So, I'm sure there are tons of spiders out there to be afraid of. Maybe they just haven't come to visit me yet. I generally, it's like writing and then placing that out for me. I was like, wow, I don't know. Even though you've had that life lesson a few times, that was a challenge, and there's certain level of going into the unknown, dealing with fear about, even though you think you've been alive long enough to have a methodology to deal with that. That's not true. Stepped into another industry and there it was. So
what would you say is your greatest fear right now?
Oh man, just being lazy. Greatest fear, farther along on the journey, not being able to enjoy what I do, move around, play, train, and live life like you want. That is that drives me, to do better, both in freedom, finance, family, health, and do the best that you can to, maintain and continue to grow and have that opportunity in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally see. There you go, guys. That just goes to prove, even though I might not be able to, really identify with all of Alan's superpowers, I can identify with his weakness here, because I think we all, to some degree, those are legitimate concerns, right? That, hey, what if I can't do any of these things?
I have to get a real job.
Oh my goodness! Did you say the job?
I mean, I work more and have worked more for myself than I ever did, but still, I don't want to go back.
I'm with you. Absolutely. I used to work. I used to work with the federal government, and I have worked in the private sector, and No. I hope the good Lord willing, I will never have to have a job again in my life. That's definitely a hope for me as well.
Awesome.
So let me ask you this. So now, your life is obviously, you get to travel a lot, you get to meet a lot of interesting people. Who can you tell us perhaps who the most interesting person is that you've been able to meet?
Oh, well, interesting people, I guess, would be some of the clients on the personal protection side. Generally, in industry, we don't kiss and tell,
Yeah.
but I guess you could say a lot of recognizable movie and TV personalities.
Yeah.
Yeah, some more really.
Is there anyone that you can tell us about that was interesting to meet that isn't a kiss and tell situation?
Don't kiss and tell.
Oh, they're all kiss and tell. Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
that's what keeps you in work is
Right.
the silent professional side of the house there.
Right.
So the martial arts world, to me, Guru Dan Inosanto, who was the protege of Bruce Lee, he's his best friend. He's I consider him a legend. He's one of my instructors, and it's to this day still amazes me. Pedro Sauer, Hickson Gracie, Eric Paulson, Francis Fong. I mean, the list could go on for a half hour. I consider those guys very, honorable to meet them and be a part of what they do and be around them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you. Absolutely. To some degree, actually, not to some degree, to all degrees, I would consider them more interesting than probably all the
some of them, yes.
Right. Like there is a world of wisdom that is learned through that type of life. And the discipline, the freedom, the exploration, all the things that you would learn through that life. Absolutely. And the number of people that you would have had to have taught and trained to get to that level. Like, I can't even imagine how many students you've had over the years, of a 30, 40-year career in this. You've been teaching people your entire life.
Yeah.
Right. You've watched kids grow up and have kids themselves, probably.
Yeah, and we have them in the school.
Yeah.
They come up and bring the kids in, and the whole family's training.
Yeah, I mean that's a beautiful life journey in and of itself. Do you have kids of your own?
No.
Okay,
I grew up teaching classes of about 20 or 30 of them 4 times a week, and they were my kids. I still hear from a lot of them today, so.
Yeah. That is an amazing thing, to be able to watch those kids grow up, and then, even for them to be able to have kids of their own. I mean, you get a perspective that cannot be gained other than through that time, being able to see them move through different phases. And that allows you a different perspective on life, right? You don't have to be the guy that I was talking about when you compete with young guys, right? Because young guys are all energy, all out, all of that kind of stuff. Whereas as you get older, you learn to have a little bit of patience. And so having that perspective, being able to see families grow, change, been through different parts. What would you say is, one of the greatest life lessons? Maybe you even put it in the book. I'm not sure, but what would you say is one of the greatest life lessons that you've gotten from the mat?
Oh, wow. That's a huge list. I think, like we said, learning to deal with failure, learning to deal with being uncomfortable, both mentally, emotionally, physically, and dealing with that and turning it around. I've learned how to become more organized, how to set goals, how to pursue goals. Multiple things out of this industry.
Did you share that in the book?
That's a very interesting question. We touch on several of them in the book. But one of the biggest things I've got lately this year was the full list. What is the full list? And that's book 2, which we're probably going to be dropping out January, maybe December, January. And the list is called The Universal Principles of Change. And that's where I go through on that book to list all of them out, the experiences I've had with each one, and then try to give examples of how to apply them in life, not just as a martial artist on the mat, or examples of how I got to apply it in my life.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, so our podcast, the podcast is the Leadership to Wealth podcast, and which is really about leadership leads to wealth in the areas of family, finances, fitness, all of these things, right? And I just took a moment there and I was like, wow, as you were sharing, I can really see how taking leadership in these different areas of your life has really given you great wealth in all of these other areas. Now, on top of that, you're sharing business teachings in there as well, and definitely all the life lessons of the mind, right? They can get into the warrior spirit.
Is some basic concepts and stuff just from this industry. I had a different approach coming up in the martial arts industry than most. It's very common, open an academy, and that is your sole focus. To me, that was just one revenue stream.
Right.
Yeah. And so my goal was to build several, and, also the ability, to multiply yourself. So you're not giving yourself to just one. And it's all in how you design it, and build the blueprint, because you will get exactly what you go for. And not a lot of people believe that. They're like, I'll help people set a goal and this is my goal. And I go, can't you go a little bigger than that? I don't think I can. And then 4 years later, they've nailed it. And they're like, man, I should have gone bigger. Now we got to shoot for something farther up. And I did that too. I learned that through wisdom, which that means I screwed up and then learned my lesson. And then I started, this is what I want. I'm going to shoot for this up here. And I've been amazed. I tell people this all the time. I never thought I would achieve the things I have achieved. Because a lot of times I'd set those goals and, the little voice in the back of my head's like, no way. But I said, I'm going to go for it. Let's see what happens. And you ended up arriving and successfully, and then realizing even after hitting that, well, you've got a plan for more now. I never even imagined that I'd be planning to go past that with a business. I thought, well, it'll do this and that'll be good enough.
So now, if you were look back at that kid from Tennessee, what would there be any? What would you share with him?
Nothing, because he wouldn't believe me. It wouldn't matter what I told him. He'd just be like, "Dad, who are you? Get out of here." Why should I listen to you?
I'm you. Shut up and listen. Okay, so if you could get yourself to listen, what would you share with yourself about that? About maybe even setting goals and and life? What would you tell them yourself to do differently?
Well, don't be afraid to shoot higher. You know, and you would share, there's multiple things you would share, but if I had to pick a few, that would be one of them. Keep the 1,000-mile view, because you have a busy bee, ADHD personality, and you're a hustler. You're going to have the problem of getting so caught up in the little minutia that you lose the 1,000-mile view. So make sure that you set aside time on a regular basis to go up and look at the total plan so that you build it appropriately. Because I don't want, don't build more jobs. I don't want to work harder in the future. It's okay on the front end of a project to put in, 100 hours in 2 days. But, you can see the point where that will slow down, and you will start to experience freedom from the financial machine you've built. And if that doesn't exist, if you don't have that in your plan, then put the plan down. To me, even because I've had some great opportunities and ideas that you have to have the power of no, because you look at it and you go, this is just a job I'm going to do until I'm 60. Nah. And sometimes that's a tough lesson to learn, and you have to have that life experience, that kick in the butt, which produces wisdom, which is why that young Alan probably wouldn't, listen. I'd say, when you get up from this experience and you hear my words, maybe you'll go, oh, well, maybe that guy knew what he was talking about.
Yeah. I was a knucklehead too at that age. So I'm with you as well. But to take the 1,000-mile view, absolutely. There is huge wisdom in that. It's true. Actually, that is so true. I was just trying to think of how does that hit me, and I've realized, and what I'm realizing, and even as I'm thinking about it, is one of my strengths now, one of my superpowers now, is being able to look at the entire picture and be able to move all these little pieces along, and not get caught up in it, because you've got to go so far down the road. You can't be looking for the result right now. Right. And so if I keep that 1,000-mile view, then it's okay. We can keep moving along step by step, every day, a little bit, inch by inch. Right. It's true.
I schedule that time. I have to, because I'm naturally busy bee. That's my personality. So like if I plan out a year, at least once a quarter, I'll set a whole day aside, and that I'll literally label it on the schedule. That's a 1,000-mile view that day. So nothing else is scheduled, but you look at what you've done for the last period and what you have planned for the next, what's worked, what hasn't. Sometimes you have to cut some things loose. But if you don't take the time to look, then, you're dragging a lot of, dead weight that's achieving nothing. So for me, I don't have the natural ability. I have to put it on the calendar and go, okay, next Thursday, that's your day. You're going to take a look at everything you're doing from a broad perspective and make change.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So if I was to ask you a couple of quick questions, and you gave me like the quick answer, what do you love about martial arts?
Oh, the opportunity for growth and helping other people grow.
Yeah. What do you love about being a rappelling instructor?
A lot of that same concept is there, but additionally, you end up in places that are incredible. You're looking at 200 to 300 foot rappels on the side of mountains that most people don't get to hang off of. stop about halfway down, it's amazing. I mean, you end up in places that a very small portion of the population get to go to. And that's pretty incredible, especially if you have a healthy appreciation for the outdoors. Same thing with diving. You know, you get to see things.
Yeah. Why cave diving?
Well, the cave diving portion of it was because of the challenge. I was very fortunate to meet Scooter Sellers, who is like a grandmaster of diving. And he took me down that path, and it was a challenge. Being put into some situations, because it's not safe at all, where, you know, you're looking and going, man, I don't know if I can turn around at this little part. I can remember times when I could feel the top of the cave on my tank and occasionally feel the ground. And you're not supposed to touch anything. And thinking to myself, man, I could get stuck. And that, to me, was a challenge of your mind, which is why I like it, because you can feel, you know, anxiousness start to come up, the little voice, and you've got to control that, you know. And at the same time, you can't overreact and breathe more. You have to maintain a good, calm state, because you will affect what you have in the tank and your dive plan. So the challenge of it is what drew me to it.
And what is it about personal security that has you there?
Some of the, like I mentioned earlier, I will work. Some of my most favorite events are Comic-Cons with highly recognizable personalities. And, you know, it's an opportunity for fans to come and meet the client, and they will stand in lines for 4 to 5 hours just to walk by, shake a hand, and get a signature. And some are a little handsy, some are not. Some don't want to follow the rules, but it creates an opportunity for me to put my hands on people. Like I said, you may, just walking the client to the bathroom, you may put your hand on 75 to 80 people.
Right.
But do it in a way that you know, you have to have control, but it has to be socially acceptable and, you know, kind, but I can't let you do this. So it's such a huge opportunity to have that experience for me and what I teach, especially from designing that program for EPI, because, you know, that is what they have to worry about a lot. You can't resort to what most martial arts looks like. Just the fact that you turn your body sideways and assume the position, you're already in trouble. You know, you can't do those things. So it has to fit the social environment and the constraints of that social environment.
Yeah. And if someone was interested in your book, and you were to say, or they were to say, well, what's the one thing that I will get out of the book, or that you would hope that they get out of the book, what would you say?
Well, hopefully an introduction to self-growth and methodology of personal change. Like we said earlier, it kind of comes through my perspective as I lived life. But those are the things that I was trying to pass along. And, you know, sharing what motivated me, what created drive and passion for me. And, you know, hopefully it will do the same thing for some other people.
Yeah. And if final question, if there was something when your time is done and there's something that gets written to describe you, what would you want that to say?
Oh, you know, maybe 8 years ago, in an academy in the lobby, I was having a conversation with one of the moms, and she asked me a question very similar to something I had explained to her son, and he tried to explain it to her, and it was a life lesson. And she's like, "Where did that come from? What is that?" So I said, "Well, this is what it is, and this is how you can apply it to your life." And then after I explained it, she looked at me and said, "You are an agent of change." So that stuck with me. And so I guess could be said that I created some positive change at some point for some people.
Wow, Alan, thank you so much for coming on the show today. The name of the book again, The Warrior Spirit.
The Warrior's Path for Personal Change.
To personal change. The Warrior's Path to Personal Change. And is it available right now?
On
Amazon. There you go. Guys, go check it out on Amazon. And Alan, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing all that you shared. I know there's probably 1,000 lessons that you could have taught on each and any one subject. I mean, you've dedicated your life to learning and teaching and providing wisdom to the world. And as an agent of change, I thank you for being on the show today.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. I had a blast. It was awesome.
That's awesome. All right, guys, that's it for Leadership to Wealth. We'll see you again next time. Take care.